Alright, this is Chat UTD. The international breaks, particularly this one and the next one, are often times when a manager might lose their job, and there was a lot of noise in the build-up to this international break that Ruben Amorim, of course, might lose his. Particularly if United would have lost to Sunderland yesterday, which obviously we didn't. We won, and the talk is that he's got a stay of execution, as they call it. I want to look at Amorim in a bit more detail and assess essentially whether or not it's the right thing for him to stay regardless of what happened yesterday. Moving forward, is he the right person at the right time for our club to move us in the direction that we want to go in? And I'm going to look just a little bit to a previous video which I've put a link to in the description that I did after 4 months of Ruben Amorim, where it was an assessment, a progress assessment. So I did that on the 27th of March, and I looked at style of play, results, player development, persona, the gatekeeping he'd done. And I'm just going to look at some of the things I said then, and also sort of where we're up to now, I guess, on all of those different criteria for success as well. Regarding the style of play, let's start there. My observations at the time after 4 months was that it was ponderous, that we struggled to play out from the back, there was no fluidity or cohesion, which is exactly what I said yesterday. There's no structure to the team. We're a better team on the counter-attack, in transition and in moments. And again, I think I said something very similar yesterday, and the final thing I said on that was that he's not imposed his style of play. It's concerning that 6 months further down the line, I think you could almost say the same things. He certainly hasn't imposed his style of play. The players don't look like they know what they're doing. They look like a team playing a system, but playing it badly and without understanding. And the key words there are fluidity, cohesion. It's not there. So that's concerning. Results-wise, at the time I did that video, we'd played 28 games. We'd won 12, drawn 7 and lost 9. He's now had 50 games, so he's had 22 more games since then. And his record now is he's won 20, so he's won 8 more in 22 games. Drawn 9, so only drawn another 2, and lost 21, so he's lost another 12. So we've won 8 and lost 12 of our last 22 games. And the Premier League, he's overseen 34 games, and we've got 37 points, which is appalling. I said in that video, what was starting to look promising at that time was that the longer he's had, the back end of that 4 month, the better it's got, because the results in his second 2 months were better than the results in his first 2 months. I think we're seeing the opposite of that now. I think we're seeing that the longer he has with the players, I still really don't see any particular say cohesion, fluidity, understanding, structure, and he's not imposed his style of play, but the results aren't getting any better either. Maybe they will in time. Maybe we do need to give it more time. I'm going to come back to that at the end of the video, but he's had quite a bit of time, and he's had a pre-season, and he's got a full week in between games. And I went to the game yesterday, and I think when you're there, and we were quite high up, so you can see it clearer, I'm not just looking at what's happening in possession. I'm looking at the body language of the players. I'm looking at the shape. I'm not a tactician by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm looking at it thinking, as a football fan, do I get the impression, do I get the feeling that this team knows what they're doing, that his style, his imprint is on it? And I don't. And we're 6 months down the line from that progress video where he'd already had 4 months then, and he's had more time with the players. He's getting more time in between games, and you're not seeing a team that's playing with any of that fluidity or cohesion. I keep saying it. I'm sorry, it's probably getting quite boring to listen to. But the other thing I notice as well is what you'd want if you've got a manager that's motivating the players effectively. What you want is you've got a week in between games. To use an analogy, you almost want it to be that they're like a pack of dogs on a lead that haven't had a walk for a week, and then you go, right, go, and they come out and they're absolutely flying. And I don't see that with United. And you look at clubs like Bournemouth or Crystal Palace, two clubs who have managers we've been linked to, and you look at their body language when they come out onto the pitch. They were tearing into tackles. They look keen. They look like they're looking forward to playing. And our players don't look any different, whether they're playing once a week or twice a week last season, at the back end of the season in the Europa League. There's no difference. That's concerning, because that is on the manager. The manager has to get more out of the players, as I mentioned before. Another thing I mentioned in that video 6 months ago was who's improved and who's regressed. At the time, I said I felt like Bruno was playing better under Amorim. He's not improved as a player, but he was playing better under Amorim than he was under Ten Hag at the time. I think he was. He had a good spell around that sort of time that I did that video. Matthijs de Ligt and Xerxes at the time as well started to show signs of improvement. Bruno hasn't had a good start to this season, and I don't think he had a particularly good end to last season, so I'd say I wouldn't say he has improved under Amorim, or that his performances haven't improved under Amorim. Sorry, the lighting in here is not great. I'm just going to quickly shift that. De Ligt for me is consistent. I think he was consistent last season. I think he's consistent this season. Probably he's one of my favourite players. Xerxes just not playing, so you can't say he's continued to improve. On who's regressed, at the time I said Garnacho and Rasmussen, they've both gone. So that makes sense. Who else has regressed? I don't know that anyone's particularly regressed. I just think they've stayed the same. Diogo Dalot stayed the same. Casemiro's still Casemiro. Ugarte's still Ugarte. Mainu's not playing. You'd say maybe he might have regressed a bit, but he's not playing. Am I missing someone really obvious? I don't think so. And we've got some new players, obviously, so it's difficult to judge them. But the key thing is, not many have regressed, but who's improved? Who's going to miss him if he gets sacked? Who's going to go, gutted the manager's gone, because he was amazing for me? We're 10 months into the job, and I don't think we've got really anyone in who you would say that about. In that video 6 months ago, I also did highlights and lowlights. The really concerning thing here is that the highlights, 6 months down the line, the highlights are still the same, and we've added more lowlights to it. That's really concerning for me. The highlights at the time were beating City away, the performance against Liverpool in the league when we got 2-2, the away win at Arsenal in the FA Cup, a couple of games in the Europa League, the Bilbao game was, I don't know if we'd had that actually. Don't know if we had the Bilbao game. No, we hadn't had the Bilbao game at that time. So I suppose you'd say the Lyon game and the Bilbao game, but don't forget that didn't end up with the trophy that we wanted. So they were highlights in terms of moments, but they didn't ultimately lead us to winning the Europa League, which was the target, of course. So there are, supposed to be fair, those two games are additional highlights. But lowlights, you can just keep stacking them up. The back end of last season, some of the performances at Old Trafford were woeful. I was at one of them against Wolves. West Ham at home was terrible. The Europa League final was an awful game of football, which we just never turned up. This season, I know we drew away at Fulham, but I thought the performance was wretched. Brentford away we lost. Was it? It was 3-1 in the end, wasn't it? But it could have been 5, 6, 7. Brentford played us off the park. It was terrible. So the lowlights are stacking up. There's not many highlights, and that's concerning. We still don't have any back-to-back wins, consecutive wins in the Premier League, which again is just awful, isn't it? On his persona at the time, I said, can't fault him. Loved his honesty. Loved the cut of his jib. Really, he made a lot of pretty cutting comments, but I'd say pretty fair comments about the club, about the team. Energetic on the sidelines, pissed off when we didn't do well. I liked what I saw in terms of his persona. I thought he was brilliant with the media back in his first few months. But you judge a guy when things are not going so well. How does he operate? Does he come out fighting? Does he make excuses? Does his persona stay the same? That's when you really find out about someone. His behaviour on the sidelines is a little bit bizarre at times. He looks incredibly nervous. He sits there with his head in his hands at times. He looks like a bit of a nervous wreck, to be honest, on the sidelines. He doesn't watch penalties, which I think is strange. He looks incredibly irritated and agitated as he walks up and down the sideline. But if I was the manager of Man United, I probably would be as well, but then I'm not, so I shouldn't judge it against myself. But in terms of with the press, he said something this week which really, really is quite worrying for me. He said that the players listen to the media, and what the media are saying about his system, the players are picking up on it, and that's a problem. I'm not having that. I'm not having that at all. You're the manager. You're with them day in, day out. We have no games in midweek. And it comes back to what I've said before. You've got to create a subculture in that dressing room. And if that subculture shuts out the media and everything else as well, then that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do as a manager. You have to be something of a psychologist to be a manager at a big club and to be effective, especially when things aren't going well. And I think it's massively concerning that he's saying the players are influenced by what the media are saying. He has to have more of an influence than the media. And I just think that's... The media don't owe United anything. They're never going to do us any favours. What's he doing? Hoping that they're going to start going easy on him. Get some results. Start winning some games. Win back-to-back games. Start to show some indicator that you can get your message across to the players. It's a really weak thing to say that he said there in that press conference. And I didn't like that. And I think in terms of persona, you do start to see more flaws and more fragility in a manager when obviously things aren't going very well. And I definitely think we are seeing that. He had a brilliant connection with the fans at the start because he was so honest. I think now, I was there yesterday, as I said, and the Amorim song didn't start until probably 75 minutes in. And it was 50-50 as to who was singing. I was in Stretford End, so like most people are singing. And it was 50-50 when that song started, because you're almost thinking the lyrics to that song, he'll bring the glory days again, he'll turn the Reds around. You're almost a bit embarrassed as you're singing it now. You want to get behind him, you want to let him know we're supporting you, but can you, with any integrity or authenticity, sing that song? I certainly mouthed the words a little bit, but I didn't sing it with a raucous energy that I would with other songs. And I sense the fans are almost apologetically singing it now because they like the guy and they want it to go well, but realistically, he's not bringing the glory days again, is he? And he's not turning the Reds around. Or maybe he will. Maybe he will. But I certainly don't think there's much evidence to suggest that that's the case at the moment. When he first took over and it wasn't going particularly well, it was highlighted that at Sporting Lisbon he started quite badly there. And then he had a summer, and when he had more time to work with the players and more time to develop the squad and evolve the squad as he wanted to, you saw a massive difference in his I think it would have been his first full season or his second season, whichever way you want to look at it. And that's been used as a chink of light, I suppose, that maybe the same thing might happen at United. But the difference is at Sporting Lisbon, I understand that he got something like 8 or 9 players that summer. He was allowed to get rid of everyone that he wanted to get rid of. That doesn't happen at United. He's got 3 forwards and a young goalkeeper and a left back that's never going to play. So that's not enough. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that he's a really, he's a poor manager. But I'm saying that he's a manager who clearly needs all his ducks lined up in a row and every bit of the jigsaw to be the right piece of the jigsaw. You're not going to get that at United. We could argue he should have that, but you're not going to get it. Shoulds and shouldn'ts are a fantasy world. What's actually happening? Well, what's actually happening is you work for Manchester United with all the the grandeur and the kudos that goes with that, but also with the frustration of having these owners, because we can't have revolutionary transfer windows. It doesn't happen at Manchester United, so you have to go with what you've got. But that's a big difference between Sporting Lisbon and United, as well as the fact Sporting Lisbon, with no disrespect to them, are a smaller club in a smaller league with less pressure. I said in that video that I've put in the link, a link of which, sorry, I put a link in the description of that video. He's stuck in the middle of a shit sandwich because the players below him, if you like, if you want to put it that way, if you're hierarchical about it, the players below him are not brilliant, and the owners are wank. But as a manager, relates back to what I just said really, you've got to manage up and you've got to manage down. And any manager that's going to be even remotely successful at this club is going to have to be very good at that, managing up and managing down. And he's not shown evidence that he can do that. So, what now? Does he get sacked? Does he stay? As in right now. It goes back to the video I did earlier this week, and I've done a few this week, or last week, but where I said the club really needs to pick a lane. If they're saying they want Europe this season, they're going to have to make a decision very, very soon. Because I don't think they're getting Europe under Amorim. I don't think they're getting Europe with anyone, but they're certainly not getting in Europe with Amorim, I don't think. If they are prepared to say, we anticipated this, we anticipated that it would be like this, maybe not quite this bad, but we're prepared to stay with him, and we're prepared to give him another transfer window, because United don't do anything in January, so that nothing will happen in January, so I mean the summer. We're prepared to give him another summer transfer window as long as it doesn't get too bad this season, then all right, okay. But stick to that then. Don't panic and sack him. If we got beat yesterday, don't sack him because he got beat by Sunderland. Don't sack him when we get knocked by Liverpool potentially, although I don't actually think that'll happen. But no, don't do it. Stick with him. If you're genuinely going to stick with him, stick with him. Communicate that. But they've put some sound bites out to Laurie Whitwell saying they're going to give him the full season. They've put other sound bites out to James Ducker of The Telegraph, who's a very reputable person, to say that if they'd have lost yesterday, he'd have gone. Fabrizio Romano's sort of sitting on the fence somewhere in the middle. All of these people are informed by the club. That's their way of communicating. So it's mixed messages. It's a lack of leadership. Pick a lane. If you don't think he's good enough, just because he beat Sunderland, he still needs to be sacked. His record is awful. But if you have faith in him, and you were expecting something like this, then okay. But I don't think they're doing either of those two things. I don't think that they are going to be strong enough to just sack him because they don't believe in him, and I don't think. I just think that's an inevitable eventuality that will come too late to rescue the season. I don't think they're going to stick with him long term either, particularly if the results don't pick up. I don't think they're going to do either of those two things. They'll just sack him when it's too late. The question is, who's better? Who's out there that could do a better job? And the honest answer is we don't know. Because the fella from Bournemouth could come in, he's got a good reputation. Amorim had a great reputation when he came in. Ten Hag had a really good reputation when he came in. Glasner, again, I suppose the difference with those two is that they've got Premier League experience, which we haven't had in terms of the last three managers that we've appointed. Actually, Solskjaer had he took Cardiff down, but he didn't have a lot of Premier League managerial experience, didn't have a lot of managerial experience, full stop. Ten Hag obviously made his name in Holland, and Amorim's made his name in Portugal. So the difference is maybe we go Premier League proven, which is what they tried to do, obviously, with Mbeumo and Cunha as well. So maybe there's a bit of that. But Are they going to come in and be able to manage up, manage down, as I mentioned, play with one hand tied behind the back, because you are when you're at United, deal with the politics, deal with the microscopic analysis, all of that type of stuff? Are they going to be able to do that? The honest answer is nobody knows. Is it better the devil you know? These are questions I don't have answers to at the moment. I don't have a strong leaning either way, really. I think you've got to ask the question that, is Amorim the right man to be able to deal with the complexity of a job like Manchester United and lead us into stage one that I've spoken about, becoming a top 6 team and starting to really look like a team who knows what they're doing, without being great? Is he capable of doing that, or is there someone else that can come in and do a better job at that? That's the question the board have got to answer. And if they think he's not, they need to sack him whether we beat Sunderland or not. And if they think he is, then they're going to have to be patient, and I mean properly patient, and play the long game if they see something more than what we see at the moment. And I summarised that video 6 months ago with this statement: he's the right manager at the right club with the wrong owners at the wrong time, and I stand by that. He's not a stage 1 manager of Manchester United in the current climate. He's a manager that comes in perhaps when you're in stage 2, when you're starting to look like a team that can finish top 3 or 4. You've got players that are comfortable with the way that they play, that understand each other, that have got a couple of years of confidence behind them, that where the culture is better and all those types of things. He's a manager who could come into that environment and I think do really, really well. But that's not the environment he's in now. So it goes back to those stages again. Is he a stage 1 manager at Manchester United? For me, the evidence suggests not. As I said, if the board believe that he is, forget what happened yesterday, stick with him. If you don't think he is, forget what happened yesterday, sack him. As I say, I think they'll do the halfway house. I think they'll stick with him for now. The season just ebbs away and another season goes by with nothing happening. Again, not evolving into that stage 1 of an upward trajectory. Are we levelling out and going down? The feeling around the ground is very telling. And the feeling, as I mentioned yesterday, and then I'll sign off, the feeling around the ground yesterday was one of the fans were being dutiful. It's nostalgia that makes United feel special. It's not what's out there now. My lad was wearing that scarf, which my dad wore in the 60s on the Stretford end. So it's, God, my math is terrible, 50, 60, it's nearly 60 years old, I think, that scarf. It might even be 60 years old. And my lad wore it yesterday. And a guy came past, older fan, and he went, "That's absolutely mint, that, mate." And I said, "It's my dad's." And he shouted up to his mate, and he went, "It is his dad's." And they'd obviously been chatting about it. And the bloke who he was shouting up to, I looked round, and he went, "Is that your dad's? That's amazing. It's an original?" I was like, "Yeah, it's an original." I said, "My dad wore it on here in the Stretford end in the 60s. And a hairs on the back of my neck was standing up, and I'm beaming with pride, and I feel emotional because that's my connection with United. It's family, it's my dad, it's this grand old stadium which is so special and so many memories, and going with my dad when I was little, and yeah, there's successful times and everything, but not just that, it's the connection to the club and the feeling of Manchester United. That is a concept, as I've mentioned before, which is unique to me. It'd be unique to you and how you see it, and that will never go away. And then you brought that back down to earth with a bump when you look at what's on the pitch, when you look at you look at the concourse, and it's old, and it's tight, and it's the fan experience at United is shit. You can't get a drink, a brew, a water, a beer, a pie, whatever you want. You can't do that and not miss some of the game because it's not catered for. You can't go for a wee. You know, it's supposed to be one of the biggest clubs in the world. You can't get out of the place unless you leave early and miss some of the game. So, yeah, this isn't the club that I recognise. But that's bigger picture stuff. All comes back to the same thing I say at the end of every video: Glazers out.